Hello friends and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm once again trying to play catch up by covering a figure that I got quite a while ago when it was new and then never made a video on it. In this case it is Kingdom Galvatron. It will probably shock precisely 0 of you to know that I never really gave much of a care about Galvatron in terms of like a character or anything like that. I know, right? Who could have seen that coming? Never cared about the G1 figure. I really like Cybertron Galvatron, but that's because he's got like more of a Megatron vibe with like the silver and black and red. Yeah, I don't know. I've just never really had much of a thing for Galvatron because it's kind of like, I think the design is fine, but he turns into this, and it's just like a space laser, I guess. I don't know. I never found this particularly captivating. I will say, what's here with the Kingdom / I guess Legacy, was it Legacy? I think Legacy version is, it works. It's pretty decent in terms of what Galvatron's meant to look like from the G1 movie and cartoon, from what I've seen. He's his weird purple space gun tripod thing. The translucent orange barrel is a nice touch. I mean, I feel like they kind of had to do that based on all the previous classic Galvatron designs. It is good. I will say this. It's just not a character or an alt mode that I've ever been particularly excited about. I feel like it hits most of the same proper Galvatron notes. It's a nice mix of purple and gray and this kind of gunmetal-y bit in the front here, which is actually like 2 separate shades of gunmetal. It's like a more lighter silvery gunmetal and a much darker one right around the barrel. And he's got little hits of silver here and there too. The only disappointing thing is he's got a little bit of a 2-tone purple thing going, in particular with these bits on the side that are going to be his knees. Because, you know, painted plastic. They can never quite get the color matching right. Anyway, in terms of size, he is, you know, I'd say he's bigger than a Voyager, but maybe a little small for a leader. I keep saying this like it matters, even though I've said many times that Leader, Voyager, Deluxe, it's price points. It's not size class anymore. And before we get into the transformation, I do have one of his accessories. I do not have his others. I actually got rid of the guns that look like spaceships because I really don't care about those, and I hated trying to find a place for them, and I just had them in a box for a really long time, and eventually I just decided to sell off a whole bunch of my extraneous accessories in a lot because I just didn't care. But I do have this, and we will be looking at this more in robot mode, but yes, it's his weird little necklace chain for the Matrix thing. And I appreciate that it can store in the cannon mode. You just pop off the barrel, which you don't even really have to if you don't mind flexing plastic a little bit, but it's better just to take it off. And then the little tab at the bottom of the chain will peg into this little hole right on top of what becomes the robot mode chest. And then you just plug the barrel back in, and it doesn't ruin the look of the cannon mode, but it's a little bit off looking. So I'm just gonna put that off to the side. And yeah, I don't know what else I can say about this. I've never really cared that much for Galvatron's cannon mode, but it's a thing he turns into, and he turns into it well in this case. Kingdom Galvatron's transformation is kind of about what I expected initially, but at the same time, there are some things to it that are relatively clever. Like, I like how the tripod kickstand in the back ends up folding up entirely to become the inner bulk of the legs. And those little flaps that are just a decoration at the top of the cannon mode fold around and kind of lock those leg strut things in place so you don't have to worry about things separating in robot mode. Having the details from the front of the cannon, like those little side pod things, having those panels flip around and become hip skirts was clever. The arms uncurling to just become arms is kind of a given, but I do think it's kind of neat how these armatures that the arms are attached to fold up and fold around the barrel section of the cannon mode to both kind of hide it and also bulk out the chest. I unfortunately did get the misassembled Galvatron when I got mine, because I got him pretty early on. I did have to fix the shoulders, and it was one of the most horrifying things I've ever had to do to one of my toys to fix it, and I never, ever, ever want to do something like that again. But I did it, and now his arms face the appropriate way, so I don't have to rotate them around to make them look right. So it's just uncurl the arms, unpeg them from the shoulders, and you're good to go. And what we are left with is a pretty good-looking Galvatron for what Galvatron is. I mean, as I said, I don't really care that much about Galvatron as a character, but I can appreciate the design, and I appreciate very much the engineering on this thing. It's very, very clever. The initial photography did not make this guy look that great, but like in hand, I actually think he looks totally fine, and part of that may have been the shoulders. Because as you can see, the way that the shoulders were originally arranged just did not look right. They just had them installed kind of like this. I mean, this isn't exactly how it was, but you can see they just sit lower and it makes him look a little bit weird, and was not a fan of that. But with the correct shoulder orientation, the proportions are pretty good on this guy. A thing that I think is kind of interesting in terms of Galvatron's design, specifically this one, but like in a general sense, is like how in the canon, the purple sections are more like along the top and just those front arms, and the rest is gray. But then for the robot mode, all the purple is pretty much in the upper body and all the gray is in the lower body. I know you've got some mixes of the gray in a few places and you've got the purple on the kneecaps, but it's just interesting how the colors kind of shift and end up in like completely different areas from one mode to the other. I know I already said it, but I really like how the armatures come up and like bulk out the chest. You can barely see it from the back, but like that barrel section for the gun mode is just kind of tucked in the back there, hiding, and I appreciate that. What I don't appreciate as much as this thing. I wish that this could tab in. Like, it tabs in securely in the cannon mode, but it doesn't tab in securely for the robot mode. It might just need to tighten up the joint or something like that. It's just a little bit annoying, in particular because if I pick up the figure, if I pick it up like this, I might grab that and like bump that out of place, and then I'm messing around with the figure, and then I realize that's out of place, and I gotta move it back. And it's not the worst thing, but it's annoying. But other than that, this is a really solid robot mode. I also like that they didn't go the annoying route that they did with the Titan's Return Galvatron, where they gave him his cannon peg hole in a very weird place. And instead, you've got the upper bicep and the forearm. So you can actually peg the cannon in a couple of different places. It's a really simple thing, but I just like that they give you that option, because, you know, all it is a second peg hole. That's all they needed to do, but now people have got options, and that's great. And now looking at the head, that is a very Galvatron head. He's got that very classic looking, like, you know, even for someone who doesn't care about Galvatron or know that much about it, I recognize that look, that like three-pronged crown head. It's very, very Galvatron. Or I guess Megatron in a helmet, but it's the right shape. The face is, I guess, Galvatron by way of looking like Megatron with a different hat. Coloring's nice too. I like the really nice silver for the face and the red for the eyes, and yeah, it's a good looking head. As for the articulation, you get a little bit of up and down, a little bit of left and right tilt. It's enough to get a little expressive with it, but a little bit more range would have been nice. But you can rotate it all the way around. The arms can do a full 360, and because of the way that the shoulders are designed, you can bring them up almost all the way. You also, of course, get the bicep swivel, and you can rotate it a bit without unplugging the tank treads, but if you want to get more rotation, you do have to unplug the tank treads. You get a really nice elbow bend because of the transformation, because, you know, the arms have to bend all the way up. The wrists do actually rotate, which I was kind of impressed by. You also get a waist swivel. It is restricted by the thing on the back. The hip skirts can go up and down and can actually flip forward and backward because of the nature of the transformation. The hips can go forward to 90, can go back to not quite 90 just because they bump into that back kibble. Can go out past 90. You get a thigh swivel that goes all the way around. You get a pretty much 90-degree bend at the knee, which, given all the stuff that happens with the leg, I feel like that's okay. You get ankle tilt, which is, considering everything that's going on with those legs, I still think is really impressive. And if you want, you can move the heels for, I guess, angled stances. I imagine it could help with balancing for more dynamic poses. And then for accessories, the only accessories that I have, because I no longer have those guns, are his cannon and his Matrix necklace. The Matrix necklace just rests over his head and sits in front of his chest, and it's fine. I think it's a fun little accessory. I certainly wouldn't have cared if they left it out, but I liked it enough to hang on to it. And the cannon, if you really wanted to, you could plug the main mechanical section of the cannon back onto his back where it sits in cannon mode, and then he can hold the actual barrel like a club. But it's Galvatron, and even someone like me who doesn't follow this stuff too much knows it's got to go on his forearm. And size-wise, he's a leader class figure, so as you would expect, he is quite a bit bigger than a deluxe and a fair bit bigger than a Voyager. As far as height goes, he is tall. Like, for a modern leader, he's not small. He's not huge or anything, but he's not tiny. Compared to a particularly tall Voyager, he's maybe not as big as you would like, but I don't know about G1 scale, in particular with the movie characters. I feel like he works, though. He looks like a good evil boss guy. Also, I neglected to mention this before, but I should point it out. In addition to fixing those shoulders, I also did the thing where I need to double check the percentage, but essentially I used rubbing alcohol to very meticulously clean off the paint on the torso, forearms, and shins. Because he had that like weird siege-like weathering and scratching that I just didn't really care for that much. In particular with a figure that was supposed to fit more in with like the Studio Series 86 figures. And yeah, that is it for Kingdom Galvatron. Finally, I've made a video on this guy. I'd say, you know, Cyclonus is still probably the best figure to come out of Kingdom, as far as I'm concerned. But Galvatron's not bad. He's actually quite good. I feel like I'd be even more enamored with this if I actually cared about Galvatron as character, but, you know, it's me. I think I have her in a trance. But anyway, that is going to do it for Kingdom Galvatron. What do you all think of this guy, or any of the other G1-styled Galvatrons that we've had in the past? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. If you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done and you want to support the channel outside of watching this video in the first place, I do have a Patreon. It's a single $1 tier. That's all there is. Gets you early access to new videos, access to the occasional behind-the-scenes posts that I might make. There's a cat hair on my face. That's right. Access to the occasional behind-the-scenes posts that I might make. And also sometimes I'll post work-in-progress stuff for like customs and such. And eventually I hope to start doing polls so patrons will be able to weigh in on channel stuff. With all that out of the way, thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.